What's good, everybody? JT Sports here, back to you guys with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. On this episode, I'm going to be discussing my top 10 quarterback prospects for the 2022 NFL Draft. This quarterback class is considered by many to be one of the worst in recent draft memory. And I'm not ready to hop on that claim just yet. I want to see these upcoming rookie quarterbacks play in a official NFL game, because determining how successful a young quarterback is going to be isn't about how fast they can run, how far they can throw the football. It's first of all about where they land. Team fit matters. You have to go to an organization that understands what it takes to develop a young rookie quarterback, what it takes to build a team around a young rookie quarterback, and what is the best way to bring out the full potential of a young rookie quarterback. Because many people forget that there aren't too many quarterbacks that have been drafted in the first round by good teams that have ended up being bust, because good teams understand how to build around their young QBs. For example, the Baltimore Ravens, they drafted Lamar Jackson and they built the system around him, and then they elevated from there. They improved, and Lamar Jackson improved with the system. Same thing with the Buffalo Bills. Not only did they also improve, the scheme that they had around Josh Allen that was built around his strengths, but they also built the team around Josh Allen. So for these quarterback prospects, determining how successful they're going to be is kind of going to be determined by which team they get drafted by and how well the coaching staff is able to, develop them and build around them. So I'm going to be ranking these quarterbacks from 10 to number 1. And I'm going to start off with Akil Glass as my 10th quarterback going into the 2022 NFL Draft. He is 6'5", 215 pounds, coming out of Alabama A&M. He is the two-time award winner of the Deacon Jones Trophy, awarded to the HBCU Player of the Year. He has a good arm, good size. Last season, he threw for 3,568 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and completed 62.6% of his passes. And the downfall with Akil Glass is, his mechanics need a lot of improvement, and he has really spotty accuracy. And when you're looking at Akil Glass, really you're just looking at him for, the potential. He's somebody who maybe you draft in the 7th round, or you bring in as an undrafted free agent, bring him in as a camp body. If, he shows you a little bit of, some things that you like, you bring him in, try to develop him. And he has some really good tools to become a really good backup quarterback. He has a really good arm, as I mentioned, and the size is there. And honestly, if you can coach him up and you can get those mechanics a little bit more improved and improve his accuracy, you're going to end up having a really good backup on your hands, because the potential is there. You're not drafting a quarterback in round 6 or 7, or even after round 5 for somebody who's going to be your franchise quarterback. If you're drafting a quarterback in the later rounds, you're kind of looking for a good backup, and maybe if you get lucky, they end up developing into a really good starter, and in rare cases, an elite quarterback. So Akil Glass, I think, is a really good developmental prospect to look at. Number 9, have Brock Purdy. 6'1", 212 pounds, out of Iowa State. Last season for the Cyclones, he threw for 3,188 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and completed 71.7% of his passes. Now, Brock Purdy is, kind of weird in a sense, because, his career at Iowa State got off to a really strong start, and ever since then, he never really got better. He kind of got worse year after year. He started throwing the football downfield less and less. As a matter of fact, I question just can he even throw, an accurate deep ball? Because he doesn't really have a strong arm. He has below average arm strength. He also struggles under pressure, like when the pocket is collapsing and there's a bunch of chaos. You got a bunch of defenders in his face. That's where he struggles the most. However, he is really good in the quick game. So if there's a team out there that has a West Coast system or likes to implement a lot of RPOs and gets the ball out fast, Brock Purdy would be a really good fit. He also is mobile, has really good athleticism, able to, get outside the pocket and extend plays if need be. So I'm looking at Brock Purdy. He has potential to be a very solid backup. Don't really see the potential there for him to be a full-time starter. However, if you're looking for a backup quarterback who can come in and win you some games and be a good, reliable option just in case your starter gets injured, then Brock Purdy is your guy. And a lot of people, when you look at Brock Purdy, he doesn't really have anything elite about him, and there's not really a lot of desirable traits that you would like about Brock Purdy. However, with the right team, the right system, he can be a very effective backup. Jack Cohen, 6'3", 218 pounds, out of Notre Dame, is my 8th quarterback on my quarterback rankings. Last season for the Fighting Irish, he threw for 3,150 pass yards, 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, and completed 65.5% of his passes. Now, he transferred from Wisconsin, and transferring to Notre Dame out of Wisconsin was a really good decision by Jack Cohen because he got better at Notre Dame, because Wisconsin doesn't really play in a offense that really showcases a quarterback's strengths because they put a lot of emphasis on running the football. And when I watched Jack Cohen play for Notre Dame, I don't know about you guys, but I saw a really solid pocket quarterback. Like, he has really good pocket awareness. He's really good inside of the pocket. He has a pretty good feel inside of the pocket. He also is pretty good going through his progressions, 1, 2, 3, pretty good going through reads. However, when he gets pressure in his face and he's not throwing out of a clean pocket, that's where he can kind of get a little bit spotty at times. And he doesn't have mobility, or he's not really all that mobile. So when things break down, the play is pretty much over. He's not going to be able to create. He's not really going to turn something into nothing. However, I look at Jack Cohen and I see a really good backup option. I see somebody who could be, a fringe starter. He could have a similar career of a Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he's a good journeyman quarterback. Never really the long-term answer for a team at quarterback, but definitely somebody who can be a solid starter for you, or could be a really good bridge quarterback. And I think Jack Cohen can have a really good career, as somebody who could be a fringe starter. And I haven't really seen too many people talk about Jack Cohen. I haven't really seen him on a lot of top 10 quarterback rankings, and maybe that's because he may not be the most impressive quarterback prospect, doesn't really have anything that jumps out at you. However, he does have a pretty good arm with some pretty good velocity, and I like Jack Cohen a lot. I've watched a pretty good amount of Notre Dame games, and I've always came away impressed with Jack Cohen's performance, especially when you look at the game that he had against Oklahoma State in their New Year's Six bowl game. So I look at Jack Cohen. I think he could be a really good journeyman quarterback who bounces around. Number 7, Bailey Zappi. Now, Bailey Zappi is really interesting. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds, out of Western Kentucky, transferred there, and he went off last season, okay? He threw 62 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, completing 69.2% of his passes, threw for 4,967 passing yards. The dude had elite college production, and he has really good touch. Like, his touch is really good. He may be one of the best touch passers in this draft class, because a lot of these quarterbacks, they have strong arms, but they don't have no touch. And you can't just strong arm every single throw. You can't throw every single pass 100 miles per hour. Every single pass can't be a fastball. Sometimes you're going to have to be able to have some touch to, throw the football over defenders or try to finesse the football into, tight spots. Like, Bailey Zappi is a really good quarterback when it comes to touch. He also maneuvers inside of the pocket really well. However, his release isn't quick. It's pretty elongated, which means that, he's going to have a pretty good pocket most time to throw the football. Since his throwing motion is slow, it allows defensive ends to catch up, and get back into the play. And on top of that, he doesn't have a great arm. He has an average arm, maybe slightly above average at best. And you can kind of see that when he throws the football, sometimes like it doesn't really come out his hands, like with a lot of velocity. He kind of throws floaters per se, in my opinion. There's not really a lot of oomph behind his passes. There's a lot of, floaters, a little bit of touch, and you can still be a pretty successful quarterback without having a strong arm. You just have to have a really high football IQ. You have to be really good when it comes to understanding defenses, and you have to know the playbook inside and out. You have to be able to look to your left and understand that when you go to your right, this wide receiver is going to be here at this time. He's making this break, and the defense is in this coverage, so he should be open. You have to understand that. You look at Bailey Zappi. Many people believe that he definitely can be a starter. He's somebody who you can sit and he can end up becoming a very solid quarterback. He can end up being a pretty at best, he can be an above average quarterback. That's what a lot of people see in Bailey Zappi. And I kind of see it too. I see somebody who maybe could come in and, for a season or two, sit and then potentially become a starter. And with the right team, Bailey Zappi can really be effective. And that's really dependent on the team. I think Bailey Zappi would be really good on a team like Pittsburgh, and I'm a Pittsburgh fan, and I'm not rooting for Pittsburgh to draft Bailey Zappi, but Bailey Zappi would be really good going to an organization that already has a good team built already, so then he can come in right away. He won't have to, worry about having a bad offensive line or a lack of weapons around him to throw the football. That's where Bailey Zappi is going to thrive. He's going to thrive in a situation that already has a good team set in place. They just need somebody consistent at quarterback, and that's what Bailey Zappi can be. Sam Howell is my 6th ranked quarterback. He's 6'1", 218 pounds, coming out of the University of North Carolina. Had a down season compared to his 2020 campaign. Last season, he threw for 3,056 passing yards, 24 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, completed 62.5% of his passes. And although his passing production went down, he was really phenomenal on the ground. 828 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns. Like, I didn't even know he was that good of an athlete. And the reason why Sam Howell's production went down is because UNC lost a lot of talent. Like, they lost their starting running back, and they also lost a lot of talented wide receivers. They had a really good group of running backs, and Michael Carter, Javonte Williams. They had Dami Brown and somebody else's name who I can't remember off the top of my head, who also played on that 2020 UNC team. So I expected Sam Howell to have a little bit of a down year. I was never really big on Sam Howell before the season began. Like, I still had a wait and see approach. I wanted to see what other quarterbacks were going to emerge. But you look at Sam Howell, like, he does have really high potential. He probably has the second highest ceiling out of any other quarterback in this draft class, behind Malik Willis. Great arm strength, elite potential. You look at him and you look at him play, he reminds you a lot of Baker Mayfield. He has a really beautiful throwing motion, throws off a really good base, in my opinion. Like, I see Baker Mayfield, but with a stronger arm and more athletic. And you have to wonder, because Baker Mayfield field, we thought he was a pretty good athlete coming out of Oklahoma. He still is. However, he's not as dominant as an athlete in the NFL as he was during his time with Oklahoma. So I look at Sam Howell. I definitely don't think he's going to be as good as a runner in the NFL like he was in college football. However, he is somebody who does possess really good mobility, and you can run RPO zone reads with Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell is going to be really good going to a team that plays in cold weather, a team that plays in the outdoors. I think that's where he's going to thrive because that arm strength is going to come into place. And Sam Howell, like, you look at the faults about him, really not too many that I have. His ball placement needs some work, doesn't really put receivers in great situations to catch the ball, doesn't really make it easy for them. And as a quarterback, your job is not only supposed to be to get the ball to the receivers, but you want to make sure that you can throw the football to your wide receivers and make life easy on the wide receivers when it comes to catching the ball. And also, he takes too many sacks. He holds the ball too long. Sometimes he can kind of be too keyed in on getting the big play. But I look at Sam Howell, like, I don't really see somebody who has to sit for multiple years. Like, I think if you have to start Sam Howell, you can build somewhat of an offense around it, and you can win a couple of games with Sam Howell. Not every team can. Really, it just depends on how good the team is. If he goes to a team like Detroit, yeah, he has a city year. But if he's going to a team like New Orleans or Pittsburgh or Seattle, I think he could be in situations where he could, start and be pretty good, because I think too many people are nitpicking Sam Howell. Like, everybody's looking on, the performance that he had this past season. I understand that, a lot of things that you probably watched on film wasn't pretty, but you got to take into account that he didn't really have as good as a team this past season that he had the year prior. So that's why his production kind of went down. But I'm still, somebody who believes that Sam Howell can be pretty good, and the potential definitely is there. Number 5, we have Cincinnati Bearcats quarterback Desmond Ridder, 6'3", 211 pounds. His last season for the Bearcats, he threw 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, threw for 3,334 passing yards, and completed 64.9% of his passes. And Desmond Ridder, like, you look at him, he doesn't really have any traits as of right now, looking at his film, that pop out at you other than his athleticism and his mobility. Other than that, he's not bad in any area. He's solid in a lot of areas. And that's what makes Desmond Ridder a really intriguing quarterback prospect, because according to many people who cover the draft, like PFF, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, they praise Desmond Ridder's decision making and how well he processes defenses. And that is something that he does really good. Like, he understands what defenses are trying to do. He's pretty good when it comes to diagnosing coverages. And you look at the other traits that he has, like his arm strength. I don't know if you would consider it above average or average. I'm going to say, it's above average. I think he does have a pretty solid arm. Some people would say that he has an average arm, but he has a pretty good arm, and he does have really good mobility. He ran a 4.52, I believe, at the NFL Combine, so he has really good speed. He can burn you on read options, RPOs. Like, Desmond Ridder is a really solid quarterback. Like, outside of his athleticism, even though he doesn't really have any elite traits that may pop out on film to you, he's a really solid quarterback. Like, Desmond Ridder could go to Carolina and win some games. You get what I'm saying? Like, Desmond Ridder is a really solid quarterback. That's what he is, solid. The ceiling probably isn't that high. At best, you probably get, Dak Prescott. At worst, you get a backup, an average backup at worst. Now, the downfall with Desmond Ridder is he's a hot and cold passer. He's really streaky. And what I mean by hot and cold, streaky, is like during games he can get really hot, And also, at times during games, he can get really cold. Like there was one game, I think it was Murray State, the first half, he didn't look really good at all. He looked really bad. Then the second half, he played really well. And there's been some games where he started off really good in the first half and he struggled in the second half. Like, he has stretches during games sometimes where he can get hot and cold. Sometimes he can be good for a quarter. Sometimes he can be bad for 2 quarters. He's just kind of hot and cold during games at times. And also, progressions. It's not that he struggles going through progressions, because he can go through his progressions. It's just that he doesn't go through his progressions consistently enough sometimes. Sometimes he'll just lock on to one read and that will be it. He doesn't go through his progressions every single time. 1, 2, 3. He can do it. He just doesn't do it as consistently. So Desmond Ridder is my 5th ranked quarterback. I like Desmond Ridder. I think he's a solid QB. He could have a solid career. Number 4. Malik Willis. Malik Willis is my favorite quarterback prospect in this draft class. He's 6 foot, 219 pounds, coming out of Liberty. He transferred from Auburn to the Liberty Flames to play for Hugh Freeze. And you look at Malik Willis, he didn't really get a lot of attention before the college football season began. Unless you have been, tapped into the JT Sports podcast, because I have been a big fan of Malik Willis before the college football season even started last year. Like, I was watching a lot of Malik Willis games during 2020, the COVID year that we had, and I was really impressed. And I saw somebody who had a lot of work that needed to be done. However, a lot of potential, a fun player to watch. And last season, he threw 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, completed 61.1% of his passes, and threw for 2,857 passing yards. So the passing numbers aren't really fantastic, but he did run for 13 touchdowns on the ground and 878 rushing yards. And you look at the potential that he has. Like, he has the potential to become an elite dual threat quarterback. He can be just as good as somebody as Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, because he has a dynamic arm. Like, he has an arm that can throw off any platform from any angle on any side of the field. Like, this is somebody who can roll all the way to the right side of the field and throw it 50 yards downfield across his body. Like, this dude's arm is unbelievable, and it's really fun to watch. Like, people say quarterbacks who have good arms, sometimes they will describe it as a quarterback having a live arm. Like, when people talk about the arm strength of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, when they were coming out, they said that they had live arms. When somebody has a live arm, it kind of looks like they just throw the football effortless. Like, they throw the football with ease, and they throw it really far with ease. It looks like they don't put no effort at all. It seems like, with just a little tiny flick of the wrist, the ball's going 60, 70 yards downfield. You look at that elite arm strength that Malik Willis has and that elite athleticism. However, he's a erratic passer. Like, you can definitely tell that with him back there at quarterback, he has a lot of things he has to work on, and his mechanics need a lot of work. Now, many people think that Malik Willis is somebody who has to sit for a year or two no matter where he goes, no matter if he goes to a good team or a bad team. I disagree with that. I feel like with Malik Willis, with how phenomenal he is as an athlete, with his athleticism and how strong of an arm you have, like, you can build a, somewhat of a gimmicky offense around him for a season and win games with them. Now, you are going to have to, build off the scheme that you build around him. You're going to have to modify it. Of course, he's going to have to improve as well. But when you have somebody who's just a great athlete with a great arm, I feel like you just have to let him play, in my opinion. Like, you look at Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, both quarterbacks who were considered by many draft analysts to have elite potential. However, they needed to sit for a year. Well, they both played meaningful games their rookie seasons. And, like, with how good their athletic abilities were, they were able to make some things happen. Now, they did have a lot of down moments. However, they did show some flashes. And for Malik Willis, wherever he goes, I just feel like you should start on week 1. You should be able to build something around him that should allow you to be successful his rookie season. And then, after that, you continue to develop him and you continue to modify that offense and add new wrinkles to it so defenses don't catch up to you. So for Malik Willis, I think he could survive at least one season, his rookie season, if he has to start, because he has a lot of athleticism and he has a really strong arm. And I understand that the NFL isn't about how good of an athlete you are. You also have to be able to understand the game. You have to be able to process what defenses are trying to do, because that's where you're going to determine where you throw the football at. And you can teach somebody, the mental aspect of the game. That seems to be what a lot of people forget when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. Like, they just look at them and they be like, well, they need improvement on this and need that. Like, you can improve mechanics, okay? You can improve IQ. You can teach somebody how to play the quarterback position. However, there are certain things when it comes to playing quarterback that you don't find every day. You're not going to find somebody with this elite athleticism. You're not going to find a quarterback every day with this great of an arm. You get what I'm saying? So when you have a quarterback prospect that is this good, you can't really nitpick. You just have to accept the fact that they have some inefficiencies that you have to work on. However, you have to have the confidence in yourself as a head coach and as your own manager that you can put the proper pieces to succeed. And that's really what it is when it comes to Malik Willis. Like, can he go to a team that can properly construct him? Because, it is an experiment with Malik Willis. But, however, it's not an experiment that we haven't seen be successful. We've seen similar players like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, quarterbacks who were really good athletes and had really good physical traits about them, however, weren't really all that great when it came to the mental aspect of the game. However, they sat for a year and they were able to learn. Patrick Mahomes was able to learn. You look at Lamar and Josh Allen, even though they didn't have the luxury of setting a full season behind somebody, they still were able to get better as they progressed throughout their rookie seasons and they learned more and their teams got better. So for Malik Willis, I just think he's somebody who you gotta let play. You just gotta let him play. You gotta let him figure things out. And on top of that, I think that he can survive at least one season based off, how productive he could be with, his athleticism and how great of an arm he has. Because when you have elite traits and you have elite qualities, being elite at things allows you to get away with certain things that others can't. Because if you have a strong arm, you can get away with maybe not being able to be good at throwing wide receivers open because you have a good enough arm to fit the football in tight windows. Meanwhile, somebody that doesn't have a strong arm, they're going to have to wait and they're going to have to throw with anticipation. They're going to have to throw receivers open. So I look at Malik Willis. He's my 4th best quarterback, my favorite quarterback in this draft class. Matt Corral comes in as my 3rd quarterback, 6'2", 212 pounds out of Ole Miss. Last season for Ole Miss, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,349 passing yards through the air, completed 67.9% of his passes. He also had 11 rushing touchdowns and 614 rushing yards. Matt Corral definitely improved a lot in 2021 compared to where he was in 2020. His 2020 season wasn't that bad. However, you would like to see him lower the turnovers, which he did that in 2021. And on top of that, he has a really good release. He has release that gets the ball out really fast. It's a really nice throwing motion. He has a really good arm. However, people have concerns about his durability because, even though he's 6'2", 212 pounds, he's kind of slim built. He's kind of built like me, if you want to say that. So with him being a little bit slim, you will want him to hopefully beef up a little bit because, you wonder how many hits he can take. You get what I'm saying? Because, if you're Matt Corral and you're going to be one of the first quarterbacks taken off the board, you might not be going to the best situation, so you're probably going to get beat up for the first couple of seasons, and you got to be able to take a beating. And you wonder just how much of a beating Matt Corral can take, because during this past season for Ole Miss, there was a stretch during the season, late in the season, when Matt Corral was banged up. And it was because, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, they did rely on him a lot, especially in the run game. So when you look at Matt Corral, you got to be cautious with him. He does have the ability to be a really good runner. You can use him on a lot of design quarterback runs. However, you have to be cautious if you are a team that drafts Matt Corral. You got to make sure that you definitely put a lot of emphasis on making sure that offensive line is at least average at best his rookie season if he has to start, because you wonder just how many hits his body can take. But also another thing with Matt Corral is his deep ball accuracy is really inconsistent. That's going to have to improve at the next level. But he's really agile, he's really wiggly. He has a lot of shiftiness to him. And on top of that, I think he's really good playing outside the structure. He's somebody who's really good when it comes to improvising. When things are breaking down, I think that's where Matt Corral could be at his best. So Matt Corral is my third best quarterback. Number 2, I have Kenny Pickett, 6'3", 217 pounds, out of Pittsburgh University. Kenny Pickett has high football IQ. This guy understands the game. He throws receivers open. I think he throws with good anticipation. He understands coverages. He also understands where everybody is at. This guy is just a commander. He has a high football IQ, elite accuracy. He throws receivers open. He reminds a lot of people of Joe Burrow. I understand why a lot of people compare Kenny Pickett to Joe Burrow. And you kind of look at, the season that he had, the ascension that he kind of had. He kind of went from an average quarterback to elite quarterback in the span of a year. So you look at Kenny Pickett, this guy understands it. This is definitely somebody who could start week 1. You have no problem with it. However, he never looks comfortable in the pocket. He gets happy feet. He looks nervous. And I think that's because Pittsburgh's offensive line kind of put some scars on him his first couple of years. He never really got comfortable with trusting his offensive line, so he never really was able to develop as a precision pocket passer, and his pocket presence didn't really develop all that much. So if you are an NFL team who drafts Kenny Pickett, you're going to have to kind of, rebuild, though. You're going to have to kind of rebuild him in a sense when it comes to what he does in the pocket. You're going to have to rebuild his behavior in the pocket. You're going to have to get him to the point where he trusts himself to be comfortable in the pocket, because he's kind of been scarred from bad offensive line play his first couple of seasons playing at the University of Pittsburgh. Before I get to my number 1 quarterback, I want to tell you guys that I appreciate you guys for listening to the JT Sports Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, make sure that you follow me on all of my social media platforms. You can follow me on Instagram at JT Sports _, and you can follow me on Twitter at JT Sports __. The link to those will be down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. Also, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. And if you're listening to this on podcasting platforms, make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, which is JT Sports, if you want to see the visual version of the podcast. My number 1 quarterback is Carson Strong. He is 6'3", 226 pounds, out of the University of Nevada. I love Carson Strong's game, and I've also have been a huge fan of Carson Strong dating back to 2020. This guy is a really good thrower of the football. Last season for Nevada, he threw for 4,186 pass yards, 36 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and completed 70% of his passes. This dude has a phenomenal arm. This dude has a rocket. Not only does he have a great arm, but he has great touch. This dude has is one of the best arm talents, if not the best arm talent in this draft class. And what I mean by arm talent is, I don't mean arm strength. Arm talent means just your ability to throw the football overall. Just how well are you when it comes to throwing the football with touch and with power. And that's what Carson Strong has. He has this rare blend of arm strength and power. He has this rare blend of power and finesse when he throws the football. He has really good mechanics. Like, Carson Strong has been on a good amount of people's number ones. Okay, like, I know some people probably gonna be like, JT, you have Carson Strong at number one. Like, I'm not the first person that has had Carson Strong as their number one quarterback on their rankings when it comes to ranking these QBs. Like, Carson Strong, the only thing you really worry about Carson Strong is his durability because of the knee, and his mobility that also has took a plunge because of the knee. However, like, I look at Carson Strong, and I mean, this is a quarterback who is a first round talent. I think he's a top 15 talent, and I think he's good enough to start right away. However, you definitely want to make sure that you have a good offensive line because you don't want him taking too many hits. Carson Strong, I think, is a really good quarterback prospect. Now, he does kind of have like this gunslinger mentality, and although he does have a pretty low interception number, he does take a lot of risk. Now, he gets away with a lot of those risks, I think, because he plays at Nevada. He plays at a lower level school. Not saying I think that's going to be a major implication going to next level, because I mean, even though he does come from a small school, you look at the fundamental traits, he possesses those. So he's pretty sound. He goes to his reads, he goes to his progressions, he has a really good arm, really good accuracy and touch. Like, I'm not really worried about how his skill set translates to the next level. What does worry me is the fact that, you know, he is a risk taker. So whoever drafts him has to understand that there's going to be some games where he's going to have some throws that may cost you a couple of games, or he may have some mistakes that happen at really critical times. So I really question, you know, like, how much of a risk taker is he going to be at the next level? Is he going to be somebody who takes smart, calculated risk, or is he just going to be Jameis Winston when he was playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just throws caution to the wind? So I think Carson Strong is the best quarterback in this draft class. Like I said, I know some people are probably going to disagree with this, but there are also a good amount of people who are probably going to agree with this statement, because Carson Strong is a really good quarterback. And if it wasn't for the knee, a lot of people probably would have him going number one and being the first quarterback taken off the board. So this is it for my top 10 quarterback prospects in the 2022 NFL Draft. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on every single podcasting platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast and any podcasting platform. It should pop up. Or you can go down to the description, scroll down a little bit, and it will have the podcast links to the Apple and Spotify podcasts. You can click on those to check out the podcast, and also make sure that you leave a 5-star review. And I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast.